Hey, everybody, welcome to yet another great interview in our Business Connection Summit. Today, we're talking to Mark Prather from Mark One Mortgage and Mark One Real Estate Academy. And we're going to be talking about getting into those areas, real estate as a broker, a mortgage, or an agent, or even just a consumer, and the different things that you can do in that and how to succeed. So, without further ado, Mark, please tell us who you are, what you do, and a brief intro into the kind of things we're going to talk about.
My name is Mark Prather. I'm founder and owner of Mark One Mortgage, the Mark One Real Estate Wealth Academy, and I have an equity investment company called Visionary Investments. I've been in the real estate industry since 1977, so I'm guessing, Bill, that was a little before you were born.
Yeah.
But I got my real estate license right out of high school, started selling houses. After about a year, I moved over to the mortgage side. I did well as a loan officer, and at 22 years old, I started Mark One Mortgage, which was 42 years ago. So I've been doing this quite a long time, and I've learned some really powerful and profound things that, amazingly enough, things that people have never taught and brought to the real estate industry or to the consumers at large. So that's why I created the Mark One Real Estate Wealth Academy. I'm teaching people. It's super exciting because they're literally life-altering wealth growth strategies, and that's why I created that Real Estate Wealth Academy.
Awesome. All right, so let's get right into it then. When we're someone's getting into the mortgage industry or real estate in general, what are like the first things they should think about or question about themselves before they get into doing these things you're talking about?
Well, the real estate industry is different, significantly different from the mortgage side in that, becoming a real estate agent, you're an independent contractor, you're in business essentially for yourself, and there's a certain kind of emotional countenance that you need to have because you can't be afraid of rejection, and you need to be pretty driven and not very thin-skinned. On the mortgage side, it's different in that there's two types of loan officers. There's the ones that are what I call more desk jockeys, where they work for a company that gives them internet leads and that, and they deal with the leads. And then there's the ones that are independent contractors more, where they are out a lot like realtors, kind of building their own personal book of business. And so there are different kinds of personalities and skill sets.
Okay. So let's start with the real estate agent side then, and kind of get into the depth of some of the things that we need to know, when getting into that industry. You said they're in the business for themselves, they need to have thick skin, and you're talking about ways for them to succeed. I know when we talked before, one of the things you mentioned was the perception of how they were talking to their clients and such is important as well. So I want to kind of get into that and break that stuff down.
Well, what we're doing with our Mark One Real Estate Wealth Academy is really it's a powerful shift in the real estate industry, in that the real estate industry basically falls into two buckets. Okay, one is residential, which is your typical agent that goes and gets a real estate license. They sell houses. And then the other is the type of agent that will become a commercial and apartment unit type of person. And they'll deal more with big time investors. Here's what's missing in the middle, and what we've created, which we call the Real Estate Wealth Advisor, is we are teaching consumers and agents about how real estate wealth growth works. Because the reality, the simple truth is, residential real estate agents don't understand, they're not taught about how real estate wealth growth works. They're taught how to sell homes more as a commodity. So they talk about bedrooms, baths, sales prices, and that. What they don't know about is the 5 economic benefits of real estate, what they are, how they work, how they can be manipulated to dramatically increase return on investment, how you can accelerate wealth growth by 3 to 4 times the speed of the stock market. They don't know what the utility value is. They don't know how to calculate it, how it works. So all of those economic components, and that's the game changer, where if you're a residential agent, typical residential agent is out there pounding it, dealing with massive rejection because they're basically bringing the same kind of value as every other agent, and they're trying to sell houses as a commodity. Where we change it is we educate the agents, and we have strategies like your shortcut to wealth through real estate. What percentage of consumers do you think are interested in learning how to grow wealth 3 to 4 times the speed of the stock market without the struggle of saving money?
Quite a lot, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's almost everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost every, see, the biggest challenge is people don't believe that's true, but it's absolutely true. And see, these are the things that I mentioned about the life-altering things that I've learned over my long career in this industry that no one, I'm not saying I'm the only one that knows this, a lot of wealthy people know what I know, but they've never taken the time to break it down and in a way that the masses, that the average consumer can grasp so that they can understand it, meaning how it works, how these 5 economic benefits work, and then more importantly after that is then to be able to execute it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's break down a few of the things that you mentioned there. So we were talking about creating that middle section, where we're now bringing more to the table and being different. So I wanted to kind of first delve into, the importance of that difference and making yourself stand out. And also a few ways that they're doing that as like examples, a few example ways of like, okay, they're talking to someone, here's what you would say, just so they can start putting into perception what we're talking about.
Well, here's the most important point in all of this, Bill. Okay, for everyone to grasp, everything in our lives, in our careers, revolves around what we believe. See, here's what most salespeople believe. Most salespeople believe if I sell houses, I have to talk about houses. Loan officers believe I sell loans, so I got to talk about loan programs. And they're both wrong. Here's the reality is we buy products or services because we're looking for an end result that they're going to bring to our lives. That's more important. And knowing how to address that, and that's what I teach the salespeople. See, what we train, the salespeople, whether they're agents or loan officers, is how to go beyond the commodity of the house or the loan program and dive deeper into what people are really looking for and what your product can bring. And what we're training them to do is how they can create wealth and overcome the biggest financial obstacles that people have. Here are those biggest obstacles. Number one is saving money. Most people struggle to save money. 80% of the people in this country struggle to save money. And if I was to ask 1,000 people, if you cannot save money, you become financially secure and retire, what would that 1,000 people say? No.
Yeah.
No, they don't believe it's possible. And they're wrong. It's absolutely possible. But overcoming that false belief, they give up because they go, hey, there's no way I can become financially secure if I can't save money and save a lot of money. So that's one of the false beliefs. Another big false belief is they believe they have to start from zero. You don't need to start from zero. See, when you buy a property, instead of starting from zero, let's say you buy a $400,000 property, you're actually starting from $400,000. So who do you think is going to grow wealth faster? The guy that starts from zero and starts saving $500 a month, or the guy that starts at 400,000?
Mm-hmm.
And then the third false belief is there's no way to create free money.
Yeah.
And that's not true. And so that's another thing is I show people how to create massive amounts of free money. So the thing I want people to wrap their mind around is if I can show you how to build massive wealth without saving money, not starting from zero, starting from 400, 500,000 or more, and how to create massive amount, even millions of dollars of free money, what percentage of the people can now be wealthy?
Everybody.
Well, everybody that has some income. And
Yeah.
here's the way it works out, statistically. The bottom 40% of the people in this country either work part-time or just don't make very much money. And we really can't do much with them. But then there's the top 10% that own 90% of the wealth. Our sweet spot is the 40 to 90%. That's the middle class or the middle income people, kind of lower middle income, middle income, and upper middle income. And those people don't understand how wealth growth works. They're not taught this. It's not taught at schools. Nobody teaches it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wrote the book, Why the Rich Stay Rich and the Poor Stay Poor. That's why I created this Mark One Real Estate Wealth Academy, which is at mark1wealthacademy.com. But what I do is when we get into our consultations is I will show someone, depending on what their starting point is. Let's say they're going to be 25 years old renting with $500. But if they basically make kind of a middle income compensation of maybe 50, 60 grand or more, I can show them how to create a 5 to 10 to $15 million net worth at that level. If someone's a homeowner, let's say they're 35, 40 years old, and they're a homeowner, and let's say they've owned a property for 5 years and they have 200 or 300 grand in equity, I'll show them how to grow that into a 10 to $12 million net worth, and so on. And they just don't see. And again, my biggest challenge is they don't believe in any of this stuff. They go, "This is impossible. There's no way." But we get into consultation, and then the first part in my biggest challenge is breaking down their inaccurate or false beliefs, because they've heard the same thing everybody else has heard. Set up a 401k, or save as much as you can. And I call it the save and hope strategy. And hope your financial planner knows what he's doing. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're 65 and it's like, you ask the financial planner, am I cool to retire? And they really don't know.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. So that's why we change this is once they understand how these 5 economic benefits work, how this utility value works, we can get them to retirement in half the time of what they're going to get there in stock. And what's amazing is they get there without the burden or struggle to save money.
Yeah.
They don't need any of that.
Definitely. So perception is important with any business in general, but also with how people move forward. And once they understand this perception that there are ways to do these things, and that really the only thing holding anybody back is their own beliefs or thought process. Once we get over that hurdle of the perception, what are some of the next things? And I know you've touched on some of them with telling them how they're going to save their money or how they should find other people's money or whatever. But like, what are some of the steps that come after getting that perception correct?
Well, I want to make sure I'm on the same page when you say perception. Okay. Clarify that a little bit more, because are we talking about the perception of the salesperson? Or are we talking the perception of a consumer as a buyer or borrower?
So like the mindset that we've been talking about, where they don't know that they can do this, they don't believe they can achieve it, they were told for a long time that they need to do life a certain way. Once they get past that and see that there are possibilities, and if they just think correctly, they're on track. And I think that applies ultimately to all the different positions we talked about: mortgage, consumer, whatever. Obviously, what they're achieving would be different, but getting past that mindset, now they need to start doing these things that we're talking about. So like, what are some of those things? We had mentioned a few, like I said, the saving or leveraging other people's money, but like, what are some of the things that they're going to be getting into, so that again, people can kind of start to really like understand where they're heading?
Well, okay, the hardest part, I'm telling you, 90% of it is the belief system. People are so rooted in their beliefs, getting them to alter beliefs. And this is, now I'm 64. I've learned some things about in my journey that my perspective today is radically different when it was, even 5 years ago, let alone 25 or 30 years ago. Is we are so rooted in our beliefs because we believe what we know, but the sad reality is we really don't know very much. And so that's why you're here as a coach, is to help elevate and accelerate their learning curve. So you know things to be true because and your beliefs are different than the people you work with, because they don't know what you know, right? And that's so that limitation of limiting ourselves to say, this is what I believe, but you don't know what you don't know. So that's what your role is. That's what my role is to open people's mind, because they don't know what they don't know. So as we start to do that, and that's the educational process. And to answer your question, is once we get past that, then as we, and this is the challenge you have, and this is the challenge I have, is we have to break it down, the whole process,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not one or two. We all want to simplify and say, give me the one thing
Yeah.
that's going to fix it all, right? And if you read that book, Good to Great, and one of the things that they asked all these business owners that built mega successful companies, they said, "What was the one thing that was the breakthrough?" And you know what they all said? There wasn't one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was thousands of little activities, and the accumulation of the momentum of all these thousands of little efforts is what really built the momentum and built the process. But you as a coach and me as a trainer and working with people, is we have to break it down so that it's not really A to Z. If you want to be mega successful, it's not really A to Z. It's more like 0 to 1,000,000. And I got to break it down and say, here's one, understand one, here's two, and break the process down so you can follow step by step, so you can understand what the steps are, why they're the steps, not just what they are, but why they are, and why every step is really important. Because I know, being the human that you are, you're going to want to go from step 1 to step 10 to step 20, and you're going to want to skip 2 through 9 because you want to go faster.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to understand or appreciate the significance of why 2 through 9 are really important.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have to train them and make sure they understand not only what they are, but why every single one is important. Because if you can execute every one of those things,
Mm-hmm.
then the gap between you and everybody else trying to take big steps is enormous, and your execution is going to be outstanding, and you're going to be impossible to beat.
Yeah. All right. So following the process is obviously important, and making sure that we, keep moving forward from beginning to end. Um, and to kind of pull out some of the things that I heard there, to recap, if you will, those processes are going to be in a certain order, and it's going to be customized to the people specifically, which is why it's hard to kind of label particulars that might be happening, as a broad sense. But the key part, to kind of finalize a recap, if you will, is getting yourself in the right headspace to, move forward with this. And then once you have that, following the steps to, do whatever it is that customizes to yourself, which again can change depending on what industry you're in, or what you have to work with. Some people would have money that they can save and do it over a couple of years and they're all set. Some are going to need to use other people's money because maybe they can't get that extra savings because they're living at the top of where they're at, which would be your lower middle income people that we're talking about here. So I think that the not last thing, but like one of the next things I want to kind of do is like, okay, so we've gotten our head on straight, for lack of a better word. We're following the steps that we need to. Now we're at the point where we're starting to get some actual income in. We're starting to get some stability with investments or whatever. Heading into now, we're growing. What are some things to expect when we're in that growing space? Because I know a lot of people panic sometimes. They don't know what to do with all the money, or they don't know what to do with, like, things just start. There's too many things going on at once. What are some things that we need to focus on at that point?
I'm going to give you an acronym that
Uh,
that, that I developed that I think will answer this question, because this is really the first big challenge is what people believe. I'm going to show you how to overcome this process. But here's the next big challenge, and here's the acronym. The first letter is F, so write down F. All right, here's what F stands for, is focus. We have a million distractions coming at us, but the biggest distraction is the voice of doubt that is in your head. You're going to hear, we all hear it. It will be with you till the day you die, as this voice will come up and be saying, oh, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You don't really have these skills. You're in over your head. What do you think you're even trying to do? We all hear that.
mm-hmm.
Learning how to shut that down. And there's a way to shut that down. And I'll tell you in short what it is you just say, I hear you, go away. All right. And I had this voice of fear, doubt. See, I came from parents that were uneducated, no high school diplomas, no money, all of that bottom level. I had this voice of fear and doubt so big in my mind that I carried with it, stressed me out. And at 49, I had a massive heart attack that damaged 75% of my heart. And it was literally, I was on the heart transplant list, and I literally had a miracle where my heart basically regenerated, which is impossible. And I was removed from the heart transplant list. All right, here's how you stop the voice. Focus on what you need to do. Stay focused on the task at hand. And when the voice of doubt enters, you say, shut up. I don't need you. So that's the first one. That's F. All right. All right. The next one is ambition. It's A. So write A down. Ambition. Have great ambition. Have huge goals beyond what you ever would imagine possible, but have great ambition. All right. The next is I, and that stands for integrity. Is be a person that is transparent. Try to live your life 100 transparent. We are 100 transparent about everything all the time. Because here's what's going to happen with that is you will be incredibly trusted by people. And when you become a person that everyone can trust, life gets easy. Instead of having people trying to slow you down, all of a sudden you have people that are always, I want you to think about this. How many people in your life do you trust 100%, where you would be willing to give them your wallet for a month, where you would trust them with everything you own? How many of those people do you have? See, most people don't have anybody, or they have 1, 2, or 3 people. Be that person of integrity. All right, next is T. And T stands for tenacity. Life is going to knock you down over and over and over again. Be tenacious to the level that you will get up, and staying down is not an option. And then the last letter is H, and that's humility. Is be humble all the time. Everyone's success. Here's the way I like to look at success. If you are looking up because you have elevated the lives of everyone around you, that's what success is looking up. Most people want to be looking down on everyone. That's not what success is. That's just ego. So what does that spell?
Faith.
Faith. Faith is your greatest, is the path. It is your greatest obstacle. It is your greatest challenge. Is have unmovable faith, and amazing things will happen. Miraculous things will happen. But most people don't have the faith. And they bail out.
Yeah. And that's faith in your own abilities. It could be spiritual. It could be, faith in your business, faith and belief in what you're doing. So that's really cool. So we've touched on the importance of getting your brain in the right mindset and on the right track. We touched on, how following the plan that you put in place and the different things that you need to get done, and again, doing them in incremental values, which is pretty good for business in general, because you don't want to be skipping things, especially when you're building that foundation. And then when you're in the growth spot of your business, maintaining your focus, your ambition, your integrity, and tenacity, and being humble are all great to keep the growth happening, and making sure that we're on track, because that's when things fall through the cracks, when things get forgotten, when there's so much going on, you might forget to get back to somebody or hire someone else and make sure that that employee really likes where they're working. So to kind of tie it all together, is there anything else that we should cover in those pieces, or in other pieces, that before we kind of get into some actionable steps?
Yeah, I'll add one more element to this. I would say to be successful, and I'm talking mega successful. It's easy to be routine, to be average. It's easy. here's what people, I already talked about belief system. The lack of belief is probably the number one killer. If people just don't believe, so they don't really even make the effort. But here's the second really huge one, is that it's a me-centered approach. Okay, now let me kind of try to explain this a little bit. I want you to imagine a river, okay, where you have a river from you, all right, where you're trying to gear the river of success, where you're trying to, we all want an abundant life. We want to have a life where, we have the dollars coming in, we got the love coming in, we're popular. And so we're trying to get all the beautiful things of the world and life coming toward us. So we want that river flowing toward us. And that's an I or me centered approach first. It's like, so the question that people start with every day is, what makes me happy? What do I want? How do I define success? Who am I? Everything is I or me first, and that's upside down. If you want to know the fastest and most powerful way to be success is start with, what do other people need? What does my customer need? What are the people I'm trying to impact? What are their fears? What are their problems? What are their challenges? And you focus on them. See, so many people, like an example, will open a restaurant because they say, you know what, I love this kind of food, and I want to create this kind of restaurant, for these kinds of people. And they have this whole vision, but it's all revolving around what they love.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go put all of this money and they launch this business, and it's in the wrong demographic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like nobody else here, maybe you came from the South and you opened Southern food, but you put it into a cosmopolitan market, and no Southern people really appreciate it or whatever. So you don't start from that. We start from where you are secondary. It's not what you want. Don't worry about that. As far as what you like, nobody cares about. It's not about what you like. It's about how can you impact people's lives? How can you make their world? What are their biggest fears and challenges and obstacles? And when you come up with those solutions and you talk about that, and you always start the conversation with, see, most people think selling is about talking. It's not. It's about listening. So having the right questions. You sit down with someone and say, hey, it's great to meet you. Let's talk to them. Tell me a little bit about you. Tell me about what your goals, what your ambitions are, what are your struggles, and you start to learn. And you find out all about that. So you make it all about them, whoever them is for you, and learn and have all the right questions. And your meeting should be 2/3 them talking. The first 2/3 should be them talking. The last third should be you.
Absolutely. And that's great advice. So leading into some actionable steps, what are the first, 2 or 3 things that people should do, to apply everything that we just talked about?
Well, the first thing I would say is you have to assess yourself where you are in life. Okay. See, when I started, I had huge insecurities. Both my parents dropped out of school when they were like 14 years old. I grew up in Compton. Nobody had any money. Nobody had any education. I was very uncomfortable being around educated people, being around successful people. So I had a lot of internal things I had to work on and build. So if you are a person of low self-confidence and high doubt, you got to shore that up. And I'm going to tell you, that is not an easy thing to do. There are a lot of people, a mentor for me through his books, and which later became CDs and now is all over the internet, is John Maxwell. John Maxwell, to me, is an awesome leadership coach and leadership trainer in that. And there are many others out there. But it depends on where you are. Now, if you have, let's say, didn't have any of those issues, and you're a super smart guy and you just graduated from Yale and you're out there, you don't have those issues. So we have to first do kind of a self-assessment. And this is where I think having a coach and doing some tests, and I'm sure you're familiar with the DISC and all these different kinds of tests, is learn who you are, what your strengths and what your weaknesses are. And we need to shore up your weaknesses And your strengths, we want to try to position you in those areas so you operate within that arena and stay focused. But understand who you are and what needs to be developed from there. That's to me the most important first step to get going.
Absolutely. Do you have a not necessarily second step but like another actionable step that people could be taking? It could be like it doesn't have to be after we figure out who we are. It could be something in tandem with that.
Well, Stephen Covey had a thing. He said, start with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I had, when I started my adult journey, when I was 18, I had two big questions. Question number one, what is possible for my life?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And question number two is, does God exist? Now,
Mm-hmm.
what I decided is I would tie the two together. And I said, okay, I did not want to die wondering what could have been.
Yeah.
I said, we get one trip, one opportunity. And so I'm going to go pedal to the metal for the next 40 plus years because I want to get to the answer to the question of what is possible for my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it since I'm 18. It's been an amazing journey. I almost killed myself doing it.
Yeah.
But I've experienced some powerful and profound things. I've pressed myself to the absolute limit, physically, emotionally. I've been taught, but I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of money, and it's been an amazing journey. And one of my goals was to retire 40 years ago, but now I have no plans to retire now because I love what I've learned is it's the money has really become secondary. What is really primary is where do you get joy? What is really a great life?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, what I've learned, what that is elevating people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I try to stay centered in. So I think for a lot of people, when you're younger, especially, you're looking saying, well, I want the car, I want the house, I want, for me, I wanted a Bond girl by my arm, and that's my wife now.
Mm-hmm.
All those kinds of things, but they were all superficial things. And what I learned really fast is that all those things, you're happy for maybe 30 minutes or an hour. If you're lucky, a day, and you wake up the next morning and what you say is, okay, been there, done that, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to kind of grow in your wisdom and your maturity and understand that life is super short and you get one of them. And you have to understand what really matters. Because when you leave this planet, when you drop dead, how much do you get to take with you?
Nothing.
Nothing. And never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Never forget that anything you earn, anything you receive, anything you become, how long do you think it's going to take before you're totally forgotten?
Not long.
Not long. Not long.
Yeah.
We can't remember. We're all forgotten really fast.
Mm-hmm. Very good point. So figuring out who you are and what you want are definitely two good first steps and really tie into what we were talking about, which is the different pieces. So awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate your time, and thank you everybody for watching the interview. And we will see you all in the networking event tonight at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time.